Welcome. We are about to embark on a journey through history, guided by an idea so influential it reshaped the map of the world, Marxism. But to understand this profound theory, we must first accept a core premise that forms its bedrock: historical materialism.
This is the idea that history is not driven primarily by great kings or noble ideas, but by the tangible reality of how we produce and sustain life.
What tools do we use? How do we organize labor?
These material conditions, the means of production, determine everything else. Our laws, our governments, our art, and our belief systems.
Everything stems from the economic base.
Imagine the past. In every era, from ancient slavery to feudal lords to factory owners, we find two groups perpetually locked in tension.
This brings us to the famous engine of history, class struggle. History, Marx argued, is simply the record of conflict between oppressors and the oppressed.
When the economic base changes, when a new technology like the printing press or the steam engine arrives, the existing social structure, the superstructure, cracks under the pressure. A new system emerges.
But the struggle continues, merely changing its costume.
Let us examine the modern stage, the era of capitalism.
Here, the struggle is simplified, distilled into a contest between the bourgeoisie, the owners of the means of production, represented by our portly friend here, holding the factory keys,
And the proletariat, the workers, who own nothing but their own capacity to labor, like our sturdy worker here.
The capitalist system appears fair.
The worker is paid a wage, and the owner gets the product.
But Marx saw a fundamental mechanism of exploitation hidden beneath this seemingly voluntary exchange: surplus value. When our worker, the proletariat,
Spends a full workday operating the dynamo, they create immense value.
Yet their wage only covers what is necessary for them to survive and return to work the next day, the cost of reproducing their labor power.
If the worker can produce enough value to cover their wage in just 4 hours, but they are required to work 8 hours, those remaining 4 hours are pure unpaid labor.
The value created in those extra hours, that is the surplus value.
It is extracted entirely by the bourgeoisie, the owner. This is profit, and it is inherently exploitative. Built on the difference between the value T
The worker creates and the value they are paid.
The whole capitalist structure is designed to maximize this extraction, constantly pushing wages down and working hours up, turning human effort into pure capital accumulation. Capitalism is also inherently unstable, driven by internal contradictions. The pursuit of greater profit forces owners to constantly invest in better machinery. The dynamo gets faster and more efficient, reducing the need for human labor.
This is the tendency of the falling rate of profit.
As the ratio of human labor to machinery shrinks, the source of surplus value shrinks with it, even as output increases. Capitalists try to solve this by seeking new markets, intensifying exploitation, or merging into monopolies,
Creating cyclical crises of overproduction. The system produces too much, while the workers, paid too little, cannot afford to buy it all back. Boom followed by bust, endlessly repeating.
But the critique of capitalism is not just about economics, it is profoundly human. Marx introduced the concept of alienation.
Under capitalism, the worker is alienated in 4 critical ways.
First, they are alienated from the product of their labor. The worker may
They spend a year assembling automobiles, but they cannot afford to own one, and they have no control over what happens to it.
It belongs entirely to the owner.
Second, they are alienated from the process of production. The work is repetitive, dictated by the machine, devoid of creativity or control.
They are simply an interchangeable cog in the giant dynamo.
Third, they are alienated from their species being, or their essential human nature. Humans are meant to be creative, conscious producers.
But under the factory system, work becomes merely a means to survival, a burden to be endured, rather than fulfillment.
An expression of self. Finally, and perhaps most tragically, they are alienated from other human beings.
Workers are pitted against each other for scarce jobs,
while a vast chasm separates them entirely from the bourgeoisie who benefit from their labor.
The worker becomes a stranger in a world they themselves create.
As the contradictions intensify, as crises deepen, and as alienation becomes unbearable,
Marx argued that the proletariat would develop class consciousness.
They would realize they are not just isolated individuals, but part of a massive, unified class with shared interests.
This realization is the crucial catalyst for the necessary historical shift, revolution.
The revolution is not arbitrary. It is the inevitable moment when the economic base bursts through the old confining structures of the superstructure.
The goal of this revolution is to seize the means of production, the factories, the land, the resources, from the hands of the bourgeoisie,
and place them under the collective control of the proletariat.
This transition phase, often termed the dictatorship of the proletariat, is merely a political stage necessary to dismantle the vestiges of the old ruling class. It is a temporary measure to suppress counter-revolutionary attempts and reorganize society.
The ultimate, final stage, however, is communism.
this is the classless, stateless, and moneyless society that resolves all historical contradictions.
In communism, the means of production are communally owned.
Exploitation ceases because there is no private property in productive assets, and therefore no group can extract surplus value from another.
Alienation vanishes because work becomes meaningful, controlled by the workers themselves.
Directed towards collective human flourishing,
rather than private profit.
In this perfected society, distribution would operate under the principle that Marx summarized elegantly: from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs.
Society moves beyond scarcity and beyond the narrow limitations imposed by the capitalist system.
Marxism, in essence, is not just a theory of economic collapse, it is a philosophy of human liberation.
It provides a searing diagnosis of the human condition under capitalism and offers a radical prescription for achieving a truly democratic, cooperative, and fully human existence.
It asks us to look past the surface appearances of fairness and freedom and recognize the fundamental power dynamics and exploitative relations that shape our modern world.
The exploitative relations that shape our modern world.
And having recognized them, it demands action.
Urging the exploited class to remake history itself.